Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Laugh at Pat podcast, #Patchats. We have been on a little hiatus for the last couple of weeks, and we missed a week there with the weekly Wednesday episodes. And that's sadly because my godmother, Anne, passed away a couple weeks ago, and I just didn't have the energy and mental feeling to do the podcast and do the videos. And I want to talk more about her at the end of the show. But for now, this is still a comedy podcast. And mostly it's self-indulgent, which is why I think today, I was out for my run and I was thinking about doing the podcast tonight and everything. And I was really excited. Like, I really love doing this. I mean, I love making the videos and stuff that you see on Laugh at Pat as well. It's a kind of a different thing. This is somehow a little bit more self-indulgent. And as a double only child, I really, really enjoy self-indulgency. But no, I don't know. I like thinking about saying something and then somehow putting it down on some sort of record, even if there's only going to be 10 or 15 people who listen to part of it. That, to me, there's still something thrilling about that. And there's something fun about building out this podcast and, trying to come up with little segments or things that I'm going to do in the show that, I find fun and whatnot. So I was really excited to sit down and do this podcast today. Here in Berlin, we've had a few weeks of super, I wanted to say extreme, but they weren't really extreme. Just very cold days, way more snow than has been normal in this climate changey, climate warming current time period. Certainly the time that I've been here. But there was snow for a week or two, and bitter cold days and even colder nights. If you've watched the podcast before, I literally heat my apartment with coal, and I was just shoveling the bricks of coal into the oven one after another, trying to keep this place warm. But today, it wasn't sunny, but it was a little bit warmer. And, somehow spring was in the air. It wasn't a beautiful spring day, but there was a hint. There was a hint of it. There was a hint of it in the air. There was a hint of it in my heart, you could say. And I went out for a run, and it's interesting, sometimes you feel a bit like stuck and in a rut and, kind of, for me, I've been feeling stressed about, balancing my German classes and my video stuff. And, after Anne passed away, like really struggling with my concentration and being able to kind of concentrate and be effective with my work, and also wanting to, socialize a little bit and, spend time with my girlfriend. And, it's really funny how simple life is sometimes, because I just sat down this morning and I wrote out a little plan of how I could manage my time, and just, said, for example, with my German homework, I'm just going to do an hour. If I work on it for an hour and I don't finish it, then that's fine. That's the best I can do. And I just made some little structural ideas that I felt like could help me work and feel a little bit less stressed. And then I exercised. I moved my body, which I hadn't done in a few days. And all of a sudden, it was just like floods of good energy. It was it was like eating a meal after you haven't eaten in many hours, or drinking a cold glass of water on a hot day. It was nourishing, and there was this hint of spring in the air, and I was running, and I felt elated. I felt just hopeful. I was looking forward, even I think, as this lockdown drags on, and here in Germany, there's, some question over, what level of opening is even going to happen come March or April or May. And I was like, even if nothing is open still, the weather will be nice. The days will be longer. We can go outside. And, I was just reminded what a beautiful metaphor the seasons are for life. And it's, like, I don't know much about life, but I think one of the things I've figured out through my own struggles is that there's these kind of ups and downs. And what's important for me is that in those down moments, to not lose sight of the fact that this too shall pass, that there will be another rise. And, that's been incredibly helpful to me, but then I still sometimes forget it. I think I kind of forgot it a little bit the last month or two. And then today there was this hint of spring in the air, and it reminded me of the beauty of possibility and of hope and the future. And so I don't know, I was feeling incredibly grateful. And it was reminding me of this clip from Duncan Trussell, who has an amazing show on Netflix called The Midnight Gospel Hour. I really recommend it. And a podcast called The Duncan Trussell Family Hour. And it's a bit of a long clip. It's like 3 minutes long. It's from his podcast, and it was taken for a Bass Nectar show, who now we're not allowed to be fans of anymore. But we don't need to go down that whole thing. But anyways, it was that's how I had heard it. I didn't hear it on one of Duncan's podcast episodes, and I wanted to play that now because it was what I was thinking of today on the run, and I just think it's beautifully spoken. He said it much more eloquently than me about the metaphors for life that happen all around us in nature and can remind us of the cyclical nature of life. So let's play that now, and then we'll get back to, more of my rambling and hopefully the fact that this is a comedy podcast.
To contemplate rebirth. This is that day. Spring. I've got this blasted old withered little patch of dead soil behind my house, and the other day I decided, I'm going to sprinkle some grass seed down and just see what happens. Spray some water on it and see if I get some grass back there. And you know what's happening? Grass is growing where there was no grass. Just a dark, gray, post-apocalyptic patch of doom. Now green sprigs of grass are growing. My orange tree is growing oranges. My lemon tree is growing these big fat lemons. Birds are waddling around in the backyard eating my grass seed. That's fine. Spring is the greatest metaphor. It's that place in your life where you've been depressed, where you've been trapped, where you've been stuck, where you've been uninspired, where you've been heartbroken, where everything seems hopeless, and suddenly this glimmer of life springs up inside of you. You gotta remember what I'm talking about. It's so easy to forget when you're wandering through the bleak darkness, when you're lost, when you're confused, when you're uninspired, when you're lonely. It's so easy to forget that nothing lasts, including those bleak states. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, if you're a writer, that great idea will come and you'll find yourself writing again. Or if you're a comedian, new jokes will start coming. I promise, they start coming again. Or if you're somebody who has been alone for a long time, you'll meet someone new and realize that it's possible to fall in love again. That's what spring's all about. Spring is about grinning from ear to ear as you realize that life happens again, that it can't be pushed back or stopped, and that your idea that everything was going to be awful forever was ridiculous and doesn't follow the pattern of life, of nature. These dark scientists blogging about the collapse of industrial civilization, impending doom, everything falling apart. They're just focusing on the winter. They don't understand that, yeah, sure, civilizations collapse, just like there's winter. But things grow from that collapse. Don't just focus on one part of the cycle, that's the point. If you're trapped in winter, if your brain is in a permafrost, if you've managed to convince yourself that things don't get better, that you're lost forever, permanently broke, permanently alone, permanently sick, it's not true. You're not going to be permanent anything. That's what spring's all about. I love spring.
Beautiful, beautiful words there. One of the things I was thinking about today when I was just kind of feeling this overwhelming sense of gratitude for a moment was how lucky I felt to have Anya, my partner, my girlfriend, in my life. And, I was thinking about how much she was there for me during this first week of, pretty extreme grief after my godmother passed away. It's certainly the most extreme grief of that type that I had ever felt. And, she was just there. She was there for me emotionally, and, she was just physically there, and really was so supportive, and was great at, being in the moment with me when I was emotional, but also great about being happy to join me in a little bit of stupid escapism, making some dumb jokes or watching some show, and also reminding me to be gentle with myself and not, keep trying to push myself with all the video stuff and the German class and whatever. And so I was just, thinking about how grateful I was to have her in my life. I mean, she really adds so much value. She really makes me laugh in a way that no one else does. We just have these layers of inside jokes that is exactly my sense of humor, and I adore. And having her in my life, it creates space and opportunity in other areas of my life where when they're not going well, I can be less upset about that or less stressed about that, because I have this really great part of my life figured out for the moment. And so I was just thinking about how grateful I was for her, and then I was also thinking about, it was just making me reflect on kind of my journey to meeting her. And I was single for like 6 years before I met Anya, and I was thinking about that period because I've had several friends over the last few years who have gone through hard breakups, and then gone into the process of kind of going back out and trying to find someone to share your life with. And I have a couple friends who have been going through that more recently as well. And so I don't know, I was thinking about that thing, and I'm definitely by no means a relationship expert. And I have had like 3 relationships in my life, and one of them was pretty bad, one was pretty good, and then one was great, which is the one with Anya. And other than that, like in those 6 years, I also didn't, like, I rarely like went out on dates. I honestly, a lot of my early 20s, like, women really, really scared me. Like, I was more comfortable to be kind of, closer on the spectrum to like a gay best friend than a romantic interest a lot of times. I don't know. You would think that growing up with two moms, I would feel like super comfortable around women, and I do feel very comfortable around women, but like the romantic side of that was never easy for me. And it wasn't with Anya either, you know. I had to really like make myself feel uncomfortable a little bit to when I met someone that I thought was really like worth it. But anyway, so I was thinking about this period and what advice I've given friends, who are in that phase of their life, which I think is pretty common at this age, in your early 30s, late 20s, what you can do. And you really want to meet someone to share that you can share your life with, but, that it's not always so easy, even with all the dating apps and whatnot that Patricia might recommend you, that it's not always so easy. And also not everybody's looking for that. And so that can also be hard. Maybe you meet someone who's really great, but they're not looking for the same thing as you. But I think the one piece of advice and the thing that I think is most valuable and I see is kind of most overlooked is I think people sometimes when they get out of a relationship think that they need to just, start dating around, start meeting other people, and not, that might be great for a lot of people and that might work for a lot of people. But I think part of what made my relationship with Anya work so far is that I really had to get okay with the idea of being alone forever. Like, I think that I had to make that okay for me before I could create the space for myself to have a happy relationship. And even with Anya now, it's like I could easily see myself spending the rest of my life with Anya. But I also understand now that, life takes twists and turns, and also that nothing is kind of guaranteed. And I'm also okay with that. I'm happy to just try as hard as I can at this relationship, and hopefully it will really last and work. But also maybe we'll grow and change, and at some point it won't work. And that will be really sad and devastating, but that's okay too, that my life will still be okay. Because I think when I was younger, I had this sense that if I were alone, that my life would kind of be empty or a failure, and that if I were living my life by myself, or if I had a relationship and then it fell apart, in my 40s or 50s, that would be the worst thing that could happen to me. And so I think I put all of this pressure. I mean, every little romance that I would start. I mean, I remember like I would talk to my mom about stuff, my mom, the one who should be being like, like settle down or whatever. And my mom was like, maybe you could just like have a little fun. Maybe it doesn't have to be so serious. Maybe you don't need to know if she's going to be your wife, like right off the bat before you have even gone on a date and you're just having a flirty banter. It's so there was, I had all this, I think I felt like, I needed someone, like it's this missing piece. And if I don't find somebody, then I'm incomplete. And that kind of idea is definitely reinforced in movies, and as a big lover of, rom-coms and kind of soapy television shows and whatnot. I was actually, this is a funny bit, but my first relationship in high school, which I mean was, I will say, probably pretty unhealthy. Probably people who know me from that period would say very unhealthy. But I mean, we were 14. What are you supposed to do when you're 14? How are you not going to have like a great relationship? But I was really into the television program, The OC. And I was reflecting on that on my run today, and I think if I hadn't been watching the OC at that time, instead of dating for like over a year or year and a half or whatever it was that we dated for, I think we probably would have dated for about 5 months. But I just had like Ryan and Marissa as this as this gold standard of relationships. And I was like, I mean, that's what true love is. It's just it's emotional manipulation and constant animosity and problems, and that's just love. That's just what intense love is. And everybody around them doesn't get it. And that's why everybody around me doesn't get it. Once you're in it, then you understand that. But that's what love is. That's what love is. So I really feel like if I hadn't been into the OC and I hadn't had this Ryan and Marissa thing so in my head, my high school relationship would not have lasted as long. Anyways, that was a little bit of a thing. But so my point was just that, there's this idea, I had this idea that I would be incomplete without somebody. And so I think at some point, I was definitely very lonely during those 6 years, and I definitely really wanted a relationship. And in a lot of ways, now having this relationship that I'm very happy to have in this moment, did fulfill a lot of those things I felt like I was missing during that period. But I think part of my process at a certain point, was I realized this is something I can't control. I can't control meeting someone that I'm attracted to. I can't control making someone be attracted to me. And that was a classic mistake I would fall into, is I was trying to be someone that these people could be attracted to, that, I would meet someone and I would just try to be someone that they would be attracted to instead of just being myself, which is obviously a problem, or from what I've heard. Maybe some of you watching this are like, maybe a little less of being yourself would be great. Maybe just pull it back. Anyways, so what I thought about in that period was just like, I need to focus on just being someone I would want to date and just like filling my life, like being someone that if I met me, that would be someone that I would be attracted to. And so that's what I really tried to do. I really dug into my hobbies. I truly tried to, create new hobbies. I was doing dance meditation. I got like really into backpacking and, really pushed myself into doing more of that. And this was before I started doing like the podcasting stuff and whatnot. I picked up my saxophone and started taking lessons again and tried to start like learning that. I started gardening, a little vegetable garden at my parents' house, and was trying to get into like learning how to grow vegetables and gardening and whatnot. And so I don't know, I was just trying to do things that enriched my life and filled my life a little bit, and also made me someone that I would want to date. And at a certain point, I realized, it's like, I started to realize, I love, I started to become comfortable being by myself again. And I think that was something I had lost somewhere along the way. I'm an only child. So, I think naturally I've been very comfortable to be by myself and not feel lonely being by myself. And I know that's not true for everybody, but that's kind of where I was. But I had lost that at some point in my teenage years or my early 20s. And so that was something I needed to come back to. And as I built this little life, and you have these friendships, and, I was living at home at the time. So I had this really amazing chance to spend all this time with my parents as an adult and, kind of day in and day out, which was really great. And as that life kind of took more and more shape, I started to realize like that I could have a very fulfilled and happy life even if I never met somebody, and that I would kind of be okay even if I never met somebody. And of course, I think then this is kind of how the universe works. Then that's when I met somebody, and so I guess my advice to myself or to any people who are watching this who are waiting to meet someone to share their life with is you don't try not to put so much pressure on it, which of course is much easier to say than to do. My mother will tell you, during this years, I would kvetch to her on hikes about, why can't if I just met somebody and she, of course, is my mother and is lovely and was always happy to hear about this. But I'm sure at some point she was like, I mean, Patrick, you're 26. Like, calm down. It's going to be fine. But yeah, just to try to focus on filling your life. And for me personally, I also think if you get out of a serious relationship, don't just jump into the next thing right away. There's a unique and beautiful opportunity to feel lonely for a minute and there's something to be learned there and something to be gained, and that then you can take that into the next relationship, to the next person that you meet. And so, and for me, it was worth the wait. So anyways, I don't know. No one asked for relationship advice, but you just got about 15 minutes of it. And so I think the next thing that we need to talk about, obviously, is mein Deutsch, which I kind of alluded to it in the first part of this, but I was just reflecting on how simple life can be when you just kind of sit down and set out yourself some parameters and try to take the pressure off. And the other thing I was noticing with that was, I was like really struggling with my German because I had not been doing the homework. I mean, the week that my godmother passed away, I was like kind of still going to the class, but I was like not there. I was not doing the homework. And so then I was like falling behind, getting stressed, blah, 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 blah. And then this, the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I've just been really like diligently doing the homework, trying to study my flashcards, trying to speak with Anya in German a little bit, just trying. And surprise, surprise, it's working, which is crazy. It's just like, I guess the way life works is like, if you work at something, you get better at it, which is wild. But I don't know. I love how life is like so simple and hard at the same time. Like it's really that simple. If you just want to be good at something, you just have to work hard at it. Especially something like a language, you just have to take the time. And that kind of goes to that feeling of, feeling so good. It's like, oh, wow, like if you just take care of yourself, if you go exercise, take a shower and like drink enough water, who would have thunk it? But you get happy. Wild stuff. Crazy insights happening here on the Laugh at Pat podcast. Hashtag Patchats. So, that I've with the German, I had been really falling behind and getting stressed, and I'm like, I've been doing this for like 2.5 months, and I still can't even like read some of the signs in the subway, and I can't really talk well, and like what the fuck? Like, I mean, I'm spending 3 hours 5 days a week plus homework and other stuff, and I'm not. This isn't going anywhere, and they have these goddamn different verb endings and pronouns and different cases depending on the type of sentence structure, and you start trying to learn a language, and next thing you do, you're basically just doing long division, and that's no fun. I mean, really, speaking German feels like doing math. That's my big takeaway the last week or so, and I thought this was funny, but literally, so I was like struggling last week, and I think my teacher could really tell. And so she sent me an email with some links to some YouTube videos explaining some of the stuff we had been going over in class. Learn German with Anya. Not my Anya. It's a different Anya. There's more than one Anya in Germany, apparently. And anyways, she has a great series of free videos helping you to learn German. And so she sent me a couple of those. And then she just sent me the Wikipedia post for grammar. Like, it was just like if you typed in grammar into Wikipedia and then you got the result and then emailed that to your student, which I felt like it's fitting. Like, part of my problem is that when she is talking about it, or when they're talking about it, it's like, I think at this in the class I'm in now, there's one other student who's a native English speaker, but the rest of them, English is their second language. So they learned English. So then, these things like adjectives, nouns, verbs, how the sentence structure works, it's a little bit fresher. And here's the thing. I learned that shit when I was like 7 or 8, and I barely learned it then. I was in the special ed class at that point, the one where they like take you out of the class to go get extra help, and they give you a free pencil, and you feel cool that you have the free pencil, but you also feel a bit weird that you and like the 3 other dum-dums, and it's like, the other kids are dum-dums, but you're not quite, at least for me. I was like, I know these 3 are like, they're the fuck-ups in the class. Like, why am I with them? I wasn't self-aware enough to realize like, oh, like you're also one of the fuck-ups. And I was talking about that with my mom, and she was like, you seem to quite like it. And I was like, yeah, free pencils. I mean, I was a child. I was pretty easy. They were taking me out of class, exciting, giving me a free pencil, very exciting. So anyways, this like grammar, whatever. I mean, really, I think this is a good example. I am 30 years old, and I just learned how to use the 3 versions of there like in the last 2 years. It took me 28 years before I learned how to use the 3 types of there appropriately. And like commas and periods, I'm still a little bit fuzzy on. I mean, honestly, like if I need to use them, I just sprinkle them around an email like a garnish, just like, I think you get a comma and you get a comma, and that looks like a good place for a period. So then to learn another language that's in another language, and there's all these words that are gobbledygook a little bit to me. And the other thing with German is they put words together, which is great. Like once you start learning the language, they'll just add together words. Again, it's like doing math. And that'll be like a new word, like the refrigerator is a Kühlschrank. The pronunciation, like, let's not get started on that. But so a Schrank is like a cabinet, like a wardrobe that you'd keep clothings in. And then cool, like that's cold. So it's like a cold wardrobe, basically. And that's a refrigerator. So it makes sense. They took the 2 words but then the problem is they don't have a limit. They don't know when to say no with that, because there will be words like today we had some word, and it must have been 5 words put together. And it's just like, if you're looking at like 13 or 17 letters and they don't go together in a way, it looks like a word scramble. It's like I'm trying to do a crossword, like a Sudoku crossword puzzle. I mean, whatever, one of those word scramble magazines you get at the grocery store. And so, yeah, you're like, fuck this language. But I've already, covered my anger with the German language, I think enough on this podcast. But that's the update is, it was going not so good. And then I worked a little bit harder at it, and now it's going better. Who would have thunk it? But yeah, I mean, I hope after 6 months of German classes that I will be able to speak a little bit, and that I don't just lose it all over the summer, basically. But that's the German update, and that's the first half of the show. In the second half, we're gonna do, of course, the very popular Yahoo News headline segment, and then I want to talk a little bit about my godmother, Anne, and we'll call it a podcast. I guess this is the point where I should give some laughatpat news and updates. I had a few guests that I was quite excited to have booked and to talk to on the podcast, on the laughatpat podcast, #Patchats, that I ended up having to cancel last or 2 weeks ago. But I'm working on rescheduling those. So we're going to have some more interviews, some more conversations. The 1-year anniversary of Laughatpat is coming up on March 12th. And so I have a big special plan for that is definitely not the type of thing that other people on YouTube are going to stumble across and be like, oh, this is fun. But for the people who have been there since day one, kind of like the Christmas special. It's for the people who have been following. It's for the 20 or 30 people who really engage and have been enjoying the videos, and who are liking the videos, which helps my algorithm, by the way, and all that stuff. So I'm really excited for that. And after the 1 year, I always say we're, like it's a team, like I've got a team behind me. I got my social media marketing team, I've got my editing team, my writing team, and we're just pumping out great content. I've been watching too much like YouTube, Instagram, social media marketing, like this kind of Gary Vee stuff. And I've got a funny sketch idea for it that is going to be coming up as well. But after the 1 year anniversary, I told myself I'd do a new, one video every week for a year. And I think I just need to do a little bit less. So we're going to switch to the first and third Wednesday of every month. There'll be a new video. And the second and fourth Friday of every month, there'll be a new podcast. And it'll be a little less, and hopefully that will make my life a little easier, and hopefully it'll make the content a little better. I'm trying to, after a year, take some time to reflect. How can I make things better? How can I change my process to keep pushing myself to get better at what I'm doing? There are parts that I definitely see improvements, and other parts that there's still a lot of room to work on. So anyways, that's the Laugh at Pat update. We're going to go away for a quick minute, and then we will be back with the second half of the show. Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Laugh at Pat podcast, #Patchats. We are going to jump right in with some Yahoo News headlines. I have a lot because it's been a few weeks. And the first one here is Matthew Perry apparently had to write Julia Roberts a paper on quantum physics so that she would appear on Friends. And, this is just a classic Yahoo News headline, very surface entertainment news. This is probably what Yahoo News should stick to, because the thing is, lately Yahoo News has been getting has been getting a lot more political, and it's been pretty kind of woke. And I hate, like, Tim Dillon, who I love, and I've already recommended his podcast many times on this podcast, had a great take on the whole woke culture thing, because he's like, the woke culture thing is annoying, but now it's also become annoying the anti-woke culture, who are always talking about woke culture and cancel culture, and you can't make a joke anymore, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it's true. It's all annoying. It's just, why can't we all just be reasonable? But like Yahoo News has been like, has had some really political and hilarious articles, because what they do is just like, they quote tweets like sources, and not like famous people's tweets, just like random people who responded to, because they're just reporting on stuff that's happened on Twitter, and then they're just taking random people's like responses and putting it into articles. And that's like journalism. That's what journalism is in 2020. And I check it every day, so I'm clearly part of the problem. But I love this article about Matthew Perry, apparently, because it's like, why? Why do we need to know this? Why is this a story now? I mean, do I find it interesting and entertaining that Matthew Perry apparently had to write Julia Roberts a paper on quantum physics? Sure. Do I feel like this article was maybe kind of placed into the news cycle by Matthew Perry's publicists? Definitely. But it's fun to see a young Julia Roberts and Matthew Perry, remember just how beautiful those two were. I mean, and I'm sure still are. But that's the first headline here, and let's move on to the next one here. So the next one is, I tried black coffee at 4 fast food chains, and there's only one I would ever buy again. I tried plain hot coffee from Sonic, Wendy's, Burger King, and McDonald's to find out which drive-thru restaurant has the best cup. And, this falls into the category of American journalism. I don't know that they necessarily would have made this a story or covered this in Germany. That's maybe not true. That's not fair. I'm not reading the German newspaper, obviously. As I've said, I've spent 3 months studying German, and I'm still not very much fluent. So, but why is this article being? I mean, this is what lifestyle journalism, I guess, is about. And maybe here's the thing. I made a screenshot because I was at least somewhat interested. So yeah, I don't know who won, but if you like fast food coffee, maybe you should spend more time on Yahoo News. What do we have next here? Oh, okay, this isn't Yahoo News, but this was just an email that I got. And I, if you couldn't tell by looking at me, am a enjoyer of marijuana. And so when in California, where marijuana is legal, I've used a marijuana delivery service a time or two during the pandemic. They bring you your little bag of weed and really like deluxe 85% dark chocolate, like edible weed that's amazing. But I got an email from Moonflower Delivery, my weed delivery service of choice, and I just thought it was the most weed delivery service email headline ever. And they just sent me an email saying, "Are you prepared for Mercury in retrograde?" Which, for my astronomers out there, is a astrological event that people feel like causes problems in their lives and with their hardware and mechanic stuff. And I just thought, like, so on brand for the weed delivery service to ask me if I'm prepared for Mercury in retrograde, and then be like, and we've got some great deals on weed, so you can deal with that. So that was fun. I just thought I would share that. The next one here, headline: Teacher, Senator's attire epitomizes white privilege. And it's a photo of Bernie Sanders at the inauguration. And, I'm not trying to always be talking about politics on this podcast because I don't really feel like I have very much interesting takes. But it is wild, like how is this even a take? Like, why is this even a story? And I feel like this has been covered. It would have been more relevant if I had talked about this a little while ago, but it's like really one of the politicians who's the most been for the working class and for African Americans specifically. We feel like that's white privilege. Okay, sure. Moving on. Oh, now this is a good headline. Taco Bell will let you build your own $5 craving box filled with all of your favorite items. And yes, Crunch Wraps are included. I'm just going to say it. Taco Bell is fucking great. And, some people hate on Taco Bell. Taco Bell is really a love-or-hate subject. I've never met someone who's just kind of like, yeah, Taco Bell, I could take it, I could leave it. It's either you're on Team Taco Bell and you're like, this food fucks, or you're like, Taco Bell is disgusting, it's not real Mexican food, which it's like, yeah, no, it's not. It's fast food. But of the fast food, it's the best. And also, as a part-time vegetarian, I do enjoy the fact that at Taco Bell you can substitute beans for meat on any of their menu items, and it tastes basically the same. You can't taste the difference when you do that. Taco Bell, vegetarian friendly, that's a plus. If you get drunk, I mean, holy shit. I mean, I would have to say probably a solid 7 of my top 10 memories from college involved just being very, very intoxicated and eating like a disgusting amount of Taco Bell. And oh man, I mean, I'm getting myself but this is just, I mean, this is not, I'm not trying to satire this news here. This is just real news. I felt like the people needed to know, and now you know it. So there you go. Now this next headline is Sam Neill says Jeff Goldblum drove everyone crazy on Jurassic World 3 set with daily suggestions. Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum reunite with Laura Dern for the 3rd movie in the reboot trilogy. And if you've ever seen Jeff Goldblum in a film, if you've ever seen him on an interview, I saved this headline because it was like, of course. I mean, that just seems, I mean, if you just are looking at the photo of Jeff Goldblum here, he looks like exactly the type of person who would have a lot of suggestions. His expression is like, I'm about to tell you how to do something a little differently. I mean, I love Jeff Goldblum. Like, Jeff Goldblum's the man, but him being like the over-suggester guy, not breaking news, but I felt like it should be shared. Okay. Let's not go on to that one. Okay, yeah. So this one, the nude silhouette TikTok challenge has soured after tutorials spread showing how to remove the filter. Tutorials showing users how to remove the filters from certain videos are still available on YouTube despite warnings and outcry from women. Yeah, I mean, that's gross if guys are, hacking your video, your TikTok to, try to see you naked or whatever. And that's not good behavior. Also, though, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there's a certain lane where I feel like you should be allowed to wear whatever you want, post whatever you want, and people shouldn't be gross and shitty to you. But at the same time, it's like, look, I put out like all of this stuff all the time, my stupid ramblings on my podcast, my ridiculous videos, and part of the agreement that I'm signing up to with that is that it's like, oh, someone might like make fun of me for that. Someone might make shitty comments about it, as I said, it showed in my other podcast. It's like when you're putting something out onto the internet, you're kind of giving away some level of privacy there. So anyways, I don't know. I just thought that was a weird thing. Oh, speaking of comments, I got a great comment from Party Pooper. And this was, I believe, on the Pat Pack video, or maybe it was on my ASMR parody video, which is for some reason the only video of mine that's ever like had, been consistently somehow pushed by the algorithm and been gaining views and comments. But anyways, Party Pooper commented, "I just farted everywhere. I'm so sorry." And, I don't know. I just thought that was hilarious. What a random comment to leave. What a great comment to leave. Those comments are always welcome, and farts are always welcome on Laugh at Pat. Laugh at Pat is a pro fart network. And so, yeah. Okay, so this next one is, so there's this pop girl, Jojo Siwa, and it's been a big news on Yahoo News lately. Big news. It's been plastered all over there for the last few weeks. And this, I think, was one of the first headlines that reveals she's dating the perfect girlfriend who was super encouraging of her coming out. So, yeah, this pop singer who I think is like a big YouTube thing, I think is big with like younger people or whatever. She's come out as gay, which is great. I'm very happy for her. That's lovely. But there's this way that the media like obsesses about, gay rights and, like people coming out, where it's like, it feels gross, where it's like, I don't know. I guess the thing to me is, growing up with my moms, I felt like, it was like them being gay was part of them, but it wasn't their entire identity. And it wasn't something that was like super, overly done in the house growing up. It was just a natural, it was just like a fact. It was just like, oh yeah, like that's part of life. Just like, that just in the same way that I like to eat watermelon and they like to eat something else. Okay, that was bad. Sorry, Mom. But it was just like, it was a natural fact. It wasn't like a good or bad thing. And I was writing about this morning a little bit, and I want to try to find a way to make it funny somehow. But I mean, I think it's the natural reaction is that like people took it as just for a long time, a lot of people were like, oh, you're gay or you're trans or whatever, and that's bad and that makes you bad. And so the natural reaction became, now if you're gay or you're trans, that just has to be like, that has to be really good, and that we all celebrate that, and that's, you're so amazing for coming out and blah blah blah. And I feel like what I wish it would be, as someone with two moms, and I don't mean, I can't speak for my mothers, I don't know how they feel about this actually, but what I wish it would be is that it was just like an irrelevant fact, that it was just like, oh yeah, like whatever, like that's not like good or bad. And Tim Dillon, again, the person that I over-reference on this show, he said about this. He was doing an interview. He's a gay guy, and he was doing an interview with this lesbian journalist who used to work for The Stranger in Seattle, who's really interesting. And he said something I thought was really brilliant. He's like, for a lot of people, their sexuality is the most interesting thing about them. And because she was asking, it's not a big part of his comedy or what he talks about being gay. And he's like, yeah, I was like addicted to drugs when I was 13. I was selling subprime mortgages in 2008. It's like, it's just not the most interesting thing about me. And for a lot of people it is. And that's fine. And that's great. But I guess that's my point about this headline, is just the way everybody's like, oh my God, so great. And then like, the way she came out too, I was like cringing at, like, her cousin got her a shirt that said like best gay cousin, and she like posted a photo of her in the shirt, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't know. I just wish that, I want us to get to a place where it can just be like not a big deal. Like that you don't even have to like come out. I don't know. That's probably like white privilege or something. Oh, so this headline, why Jane Levy didn't realize she was nominated for a Golden Globe at first. I went to high school with Jane Levy. So that's fun. And I didn't read the article. I kind of forgot that she was on TV. Because like when she first got on TV, I was like, holy shit, like I went to high school with her. Like she used to do stuff at the like school rallies at, assemblies or whatever. And then she was in a big horror movie that I think didn't do super well. And then I hadn't heard about her for a while, but apparently she got a Golden Globe. So that's awesome. Congratulations, Jane Levy. I always thought that you were underratedly attractive in high school. And now you have a successful acting career, and that's really cool. And okay, so this next one is just classic Yahoo News. It just says, you know what I heard about Cordell Stewart? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Great headline, great journalism. And I don't know what I heard about Cordell Stewart because I did not click that article. But we'll move on. Oh, yeah. So this next headline was, I think it was on Yahoo News. Maybe it was on an article I saw, like a recommended thing. It's like, women gloriously roast man who can't believe periods happen at night. To me, I'm like, the poor guy. Like, of course, I had a unique understanding of periods from a young age, but that's just a failure of our education system. It's like, we don't need to roast a guy because he doesn't understand how periods work. We need to fund sex education and require it in all 50 states. Like, that's the failure there, really. So anyways, moving on. That wasn't funny. Oh, this is funny. 6 bears ran amok and caused spectators to flee for their lives moments after being released into the wild. A special ceremony in Iraqi Kurdistan descended into chaos after the attempted release of 6 Syrian brown bears resulted in the animals running amok. And yeah, I mean, it just looks wild. I'm assuming everybody turned out fine, but I like imagining a huge media event releasing these bears back into the wild, and then they just start going after people like a running of the bulls, but more dangerous. And let's see what our last headline is here. Ah, man. I didn't want to end on a political note, but here we go. U.S. outraged after rocket attack on U.S. forces in Iraq. I don't know. I just thought it was funny because it's like, just we're literally in another, like occupying another country, and it's not our country, and we're outraged that someone would be upset by that and would attack us for that. I don't know. I just thought it was like very, very American. So anyways, that is our Yahoo News headlines. And so to end the show, I as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, my godmother Anne recently passed away. And so I just wanted to say a few words about her because, she was not, to even tell people like, oh, she was my godmother, it's like, that makes it kind of sound like she just sent me a check on my birthday. And, people sometimes will ask me like, oh, what was it like growing up with two moms? And, I really feel like in a way I grew up with three moms. When I joke about being a double only child, it's because I feel like I was raised by, this group of adults. It was my mother's and it was Anne and Fred, my godparents. And, my mom's told me at some point that, when I was growing up, I started like latching on to male figures. And they thought, well, okay, he needs a male influence in his life, which I think is so badass and self-confident of them as women who, grew up in the 60s and 70s and had to, really fight for their equality and, fight for their rights as lesbians and stuff, to still be self-confident enough to say like, oh, we have a son and he needs a male influence. And wouldn't it be better if we controlled who that was? And so Anne asked, her best friend, Anne, and her then not yet husband, Fred, if they wanted to be a part of my life. And so I would go there for a weekend every month since I could remember until I left for college. And they were a second set of parents. And Anne was like another mother to me. And, Anne had been sick for a while before she passed away. So in a way, I knew it was coming, but it was still a shock. And it, even when that, that the end is near for someone, I think there are a lot of things you don't realize until they're gone, what that last conversation was, when the last time was that you saw them, the events that they won't be there for in the future. And I feel so lucky that I got to have Anne in my life. She was someone who treated me like an adult when I was a kid in a really beautiful way, where she was always willing to hear me out so long as I would be, rational and not too emotional. She would hear me out, and she knew the best questions to ask me, the most probing questions. And she was the one who would always drive me home, just me and her, after my weekend at my godparents. And we would just talk about life. We would have competitions to see how long we could keep the gummy worm that we ate on the way out the door in our mouth before it had totally disintegrated. Just stupid stuff. And we would talk about life, and she was a real advocate for me to my parents. And having her and Fred in my life is something that if I ever had kids, I would really want to emulate, because I had these adults who were parents, but they weren't their everyday parents. And so there was an ability that I could talk to them about certain stuff when I was younger that I didn't always feel comfortable to talk to with my parents, or that both my parents and I sometimes would be too close to a subject and they could kind of see it from a different angle. And so and really advocated for me when I was a kid to my parents about a few different things. And she was silly and hilarious, and up until the end was always willing to make toilet humor with me, which would absolutely outrage and disgust Fred, which is why we both loved doing it. And she had that little bit of a devilishness to her, as Fred did, of course, as well. And so we enjoyed being able to rile him up, since so many of the times it was me and him riling her up. And she was fiercely strong, fiercely independent, fiercely badass, and beautiful and loving and an amazing person. And, I sometimes marvel at the fact that I is so lucky to have two amazing, really loving, amazing parents that I have in my mother's. And then to think then I got two more amazing, interesting, loving parents. I mean, you can't hit the lottery more than that. And so it has been sad to have her be gone, and to realize that she won't be there at the next Christmas or at my wedding someday. But we had so many good memories, and she was also someone who she had Parkinson's, and like she was the person who would make jokes when we were playing card games. She would joke that the reason that she was losing is because she had Parkinson's. She was the first to make a joke at her own expense, and to be able to laugh at herself. And that's such a beautiful part of humor, if you can do that, I think. And that's something that I take with me and hold with me. And she was just an amazing, amazing lady. And I feel so lucky that I got to have her in my life as long as I did. And, the last time we spoke, I felt like the veil was getting a little thin for her. And so in that conversation, it was Christmas time. It was the day after Christmas, which is the day we would always meet. And in that conversation, we talked a lot about death. And when I hung up that day, I felt like we had said goodbye in a way. And that's something that a lot of people don't get to have. I got to say goodbye. I got to know that she knew how much I loved her and how much she meant to me. And for that, I'll feel forever lucky. So this episode of the podcast is dedicated to my lovely, beautiful, fierce godmother, Anne. Thank you.